So tell me what y'all think of this.
In a leaked video that emerged on the internet, an alleged encounter between a man and an extraterrestrial being took place at an undisclosed location within a secret base in the United States. The encounter reportedly occurred during the nighttime, and due to the video's quality, the specific surroundings remain unidentified. It is believed that this encounter took place in 2017, although no official confirmation from the government has been provided. The video begins with a man standing a short distance away from what appears to be an extraterrestrial being, commonly referred to as a gray. Both individuals face each other and maintain eye contact for several moments. The extraterrestrial's physical features resemble typical depictions of grays: a hairless, pale grayish skin tone, large dark eyes, and a slight frame.
I keep hearing the names that they're calling them, the Greys. Different names I'm starting to hear a lot. Just pay attention to that.
The man remains calm throughout the encounter, showing no signs of distress or fear. Their interaction appears to be nonverbal, as no audible communication is captured in the leaked video. Despite this, their body language seems engaged and focused. The man and the extraterrestrial being exchange glances, perhaps attempting to convey meaning or understanding to one another. It is worth noting that any interpretation of their interaction remains speculative due to the lack of context provided. After a brief period of visual engagement, the man and the extraterrestrial reach out and firmly shake hands. This momentary physical contact suggests a mutual acknowledgement or agreement between the two parties.
Now, I know people are going to say this could be on a movie set. They can say this could be CGI, could be all of those things, but what if it's not?
The handshake appears formal, devoid of any overt displays of emotion or excitement. Both individuals maintain a composed demeanor throughout the encounter, further adding to the enigmatic nature of the video. It is important to emphasize that the authenticity and veracity of this video remain unverified, as no official confirmation or statements have been released by the government or reputable sources. Skepticism should be exercised when evaluating the footage. The leaked video serves as a piece of intriguing but unconfirmed evidence in the realm of alleged extraterrestrial encounters. As with any leaked material, its origin and intentions behind its release by an anonymous source raise additional questions about its credibility. The lack of supporting information or corroboration adds further complexity to the assessment of this alleged encounter. Without official documentation or reliable sources, it is impossible to draw definitive conclusions regarding the nature and significance of this encounter. Until further evidence emerges or official disclosures are made, this leaked video remains an unverified curiosity within the realm of alleged extraterrestrial encounters. In a leaked...
So what has me kind of reserved about it is, you know what I mean? This is implying, if this is real, that they can breathe our air. That's what I still have questions about, because I think if there's a possibility that they exist, that they're studying us, and I don't think they can do that, breathe our air in, but who knows? These are still questions I have.
Welcome back to Uncensored, now to UFOs, and revisiting this topic, in fact, because this time last week we invited two experts on to talk about the recent congressional hearing in the US, which included testimony from a former intelligence official who claimed the US has possession of intact and partially intact alien vehicles. I actually asked to do this topic while covering this Seek for Peers because I find it really interesting. And last week's interview didn't go as planned. Sometimes in live televisions that happens. We ran short of time to get to ask the questions I wanted. We got some feedback from the community that follows the guests that we invited on, that they weren't appreciative of the way we handled it. So we decided to invite the investigative journalist and co-host of the Weaponized podcast, Jeremy Corbell, back onto the show. Joins us now. Jeremy, welcome back. And just give me a sense of exactly where you think the interview didn't go the way that was hoped last time.
Yeah, Rosanna, I really appreciate you. I've heard that you are smart and that you listen to the public and that you are trying to report the news. So let's reframe this conversation. I think that you have been unfairly attacked on social media due to our last discussion. You know, I am mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. If you remember that movie.
I remember it very well, Jeremy. Network.
Yeah. Questions are weapons. And so that's why I'm back on. But let's talk about why I'm back on. Last time, it was like a Twilight Zone movie mixed with like The Wizard of Oz. It is like that film, Don't Look Up. I was sitting there thinking, what are they doing? Saying tinfoil hat. What are they doing playing the X-Files music? We are so far past that. But this is a battle for information right now. And I said, so put on your battle helmet. So let's talk about that real quick. What I meant to try to talk with you about is that this is an international issue. And no matter what is found about this UFO topic, whatever the ground level truth is, this is the biggest story in human history. No matter what it is found that UFOs are or represent to humanity, they now call them UAP, no big deal. But I want to throw down for you right now so you understand, you might not be aware, there is a literal disinformation campaign by intelligence agencies to quote unquote shape the emerging UAP narrative. And
see, this is what we've been talking about, man. The whole smear campaign against David Grush and everything going on, trying to paint him out as an alcoholic and everything else, trying to expose some of his things he's gone through and suffered with and PTSD and different things like that. All of that stuff, the tactics they're using to try to shape this narrative as to, instead of allowing people to form their own opinion. Why are you so quick to do that to those men? You know what I'm saying? Why? That makes me continuously look at them as suspicious. The Pentagon, different intelligence agencies and stuff like that. I'm looking at them very skeptical and have been for a while.
And they use stigma and sleight of hand, and your government is actually involved in this. And before today, really your network and you have been kind of unwittingly part of this problem. But as of today, right now, this conversation, your network, we are now going to make sure you are part of the solution, because we're going to be talking about the facts of the UFO and UAP issue. And I am personally aware of the impacts of this last UFO hearing. Are you personally aware of the repercussions, what happened because of that UFO hearing, Rosanna?
No, I'm not. And again, this is the reason why I wanted to have this discussion, because I thought it was so rare and unusual to see Congress taking the issue of UFOs so seriously. In fact, let's play a clip from some testimony we had.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
Biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human?
Bro, I don't watch this hearing so much I can almost quote it. I knew he was about to say biologics.
Biologics.
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
Jeremy, give our audience a sense, if they're not familiar with this, because not everyone has the level of detail and insight that you and your followers have into this whole community and into the experts involved, who that person was.
Yeah, again, questions are weapons, so thank you for throwing that one to me. So you see on your screen David Grush, a decorated military veteran who has served the United States and intelligence communities for decades. And this individual came forward under oath, came forward, and he said, look, I did an investigation. I had access to these special access programs. It was my job to look for misappropriation of funds, which is theft, related to UFOs and UAP. And he found them. He interviewed over 40 people that had direct firsthand knowledge of a cover-up of these UFO programs, exploitation, which means reverse engineering. So we got there in front of Congress, and for the first time in history, had firsthand people, 2 pilots, fighter pilots, Top Gun pilots, think Tom Cruise, one of whom engaged a UFO for the United States military. And then we had David Grush, and David Grush is a whistleblower about this theft from our governments financially to cover up this UFO exploitation or reverse engineering thing. And he just said there in that clip that there were biologics. He means pilots, non-human intelligence. Now, if that is true, whatever you want to label what he said, we need to find out if that is true. So we held this historic congressional hearing. Those 3 individuals testified under oath, and my mentor in journalism, George Knapp, and I, we submitted something for congressional record, 2 statements, and those statements were an assessment of the situation that has been going on for a long time regarding UFOs and the cover-up.
Let's get...
That's why that TikTok in the beginning, you know, it's there to make you think whether or not we know it's real or not. This could be some of the things that are taking place somewhere in a remote location that we don't know about.
Give our audience a bit of a sense then of one of those pilots you were saying. It's almost like a sort of Top Gun person, a real pilot, Ryan Graves. This is what he said.
In 2014, I was an F-18 Foxtrot pilot in the Navy Fighter Attack Squadron 11, the Red Rippers. After upgrades were made to our jet's radar systems, we began detecting unknown objects operating in our airspace. During a training mission in Warning Area Whiskey 72, 10 miles off the coast of Virginia Beach, 2 F-18 Super Hornets were split by a UAP. The object, described as a dark gray or a black cube inside of a clear sphere, came within 50 feet of the lead aircraft and was estimated to be 5 to 15 feet in diameter.
Now that's some pretty interesting and serious testimony in my ears when it comes to this. And you talk it there about government cover-up, which is actually one of the sort of topics why we had this hearing. It's been also called, quote, administrative terrorism. You said the UK government is complicit in that. Of course, they're not here to give any kind of counter to that, but we're going to listen to your point of view on it, or the facts that you've gathered. But the thing that sort of pricked my ears up over the last week when I've been receiving all this commentary online was this idea of Don't Look Up, which of course is that movie about people not taking climate change seriously, notably TV shows like this one. And I take climate change very seriously, and off the back of that congressional hearing, took UFOs more seriously as well. So what is it?
I think a lot of people did. I think it opened a lot of people's eyes of like, no. This could potentially be serious and real. A lot of people had to sit back and really, I guess because it's now in front of you and right before Congress and it's being presented to Congress, a lot of more people took it serious.
You need to do, you think, to get people to continue to take this topic seriously and see it for the interest that it has?
Well, I commend you, Rosanna, because this is what exactly we need to do, is bring people up to date with what we know, what we think, and what we're trying to find out. So I really like that you referenced that movie, because this is nothing new. People have been coming forward for a long time. There's just now an official process to protect whistleblowers under a Presidential Protection Act. So this is legislation. And that legislation wasn't made out of a void. This is so people can come forward and say, I have been complicit in this cover-up about UFOs, that this has been happening for a long time. It's ubiquitous across the globe, and it presents not only safety of flight issues, but also issues with deployments, issues with nuclear weapons. This is well documented that there has been interference from unknowns, from craft of unknown origin that outpace, outmaneuver, and outperform anything we have in our arsenal, as well as the UK arsenal. And how I say and why I say that the UK is involved in this is because of the Five Eyes Alliance, because I released with my mentor in journalism, George Knapp, evidence and proof of this from Canada, that there is something called the Foreign Technologies Program, that is absolutely 100% working on these reverse engineering programs of UAPs. It's called the Foreign Materials Program, the Five Eyes Foreign Materials Program. And this was a minister, a parliamentary member from Canada that wrote this letter in deep concern. So this is something the UK, the US, the Five Eyes Alliances have all been working on. And this has been going on.
I ain't gonna lie, that Five Eyes Alliance, what does that sound like? Yo, that sounds like some demonic, Illuminati type, all of that type of stuff, man.
For a long time. So what has to happen now is we need to reduce the stigma. No more X-Files, no more tinfoil hats. Again, put on your battle helmets. What's important now is that we find out the ground truth on UFOs. We know UFOs are real. We know there are machines that are far more advanced than what we have. And this is nothing new. These have been reported before the Wright brothers went into the sky, before human beings have flight. This has been reported by pilots, by military. Some of these accounts, they go back to before there was even a Pentagon. So now we have to have this conversation soberly. We need to discuss the facts, because our sensor systems, it's not just pilots anymore telling you this. The pilots are simply corroborating what's on their shared AI radar. This is something that's being picked up. This is something that we have corroborative visual evidence of, a lot of which I have produced and put to the public through leaks that came to me. They have been verified by our Department of Defense. So everybody, what you can do is start paying attention.
Keeping those eyes open and
Agreed.
having sober discussion of facts, and taking a listen to some of those clips in the congressional hearing are fascinating. And Jeremy, it's been a fascinating discussion. Thank you so much for making time to speak to us again.
Anytime, I really appreciate you. People got it wrong. You're doing your job. You're reporting the news. And this is the biggest story of all time.
Thanks, Jeremy.
These are some words that you should probably listen to. At least raised some alarm bells when I heard them yesterday. CIA Director Bill Burns warning that Russia could be preparing for a false flag operation in the Black Sea. Take a listen.
We see some very concerning signs of the Russians considering the kind of false flag operations that, we highlighted in the run-up to the war as well. In other words, looking at ways in which, they might make attacks against shipping in the Black Sea and then blaming it or trying to blame it on the Ukrainians.
Overnight, Russia targeted a grain warehouse in Ukraine's Odessa region. A military official says 2 people were hurt. More than 100 tons of peas and barley were destroyed. This is the 4th night of strikes on Ukraine's main port city, and it coincides with Russia's decision to pull out of a critical deal that allowed for the safe export of Ukrainian grain to nations that desperately need it. According to the National Security Council, agricultural infrastructure and 60,000 tons of grain have been destroyed in these attacks. CNN's Alex Marquardt is in Kyiv with us now, and we're also joined by retired U.S. Army Brigadier General Steve Anderson. Alex, I want to start with you. You had been in Odessa for the initial 3 nights of attacks. There's now a 4th. What actually happened last night? When did they come?
Yeah, Phil, we just got back to Kyiv. We were in Odessa for the last few nights during this incredible barrage of Russian strikes. In fact, we were up all night waiting to see whether Russia would indeed carry out a 4th night of these attacks. And now it seems they have. This came in the dawn hours. We did hear some warnings while we were in Odessa that Russia was indeed attacking again, but we were in the city. We could not hear those strikes. Now we have learned that there were at least 7 missiles that attacked an area southwest of Odessa, still in the Odessa region, targeting different types of infrastructure, including food infrastructure. So this speaks to the argument that we've heard from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and other Ukrainian officials that Russia is weaponizing hunger. Now, according to Ukraine, Russia used 7 different types of cruise missiles to attack grain warehouses southwest of the city. They destroyed 100 tons of peas, 20 tons of barley. This comes after those 3 nights of very intense strikes using both drones and missiles to go after the grain infrastructure, to go after the ports in Odessa and elsewhere. This just speaks to the incredible rising tension in the Black Sea region. Russia has justified its
And they were trying to make it seem like this thing would be over. They would come to some sort of common ground by now. This thing seems to be intensifying to me, is what I'm seeing. Are y'all not seeing the same thing? Seems like it's getting worse.
Saying that they are responding to that attack on the Kerch Bridge that took place on Monday by Ukraine. But it is clear that they are going after the food infrastructure. And of course, Phil, this comes after Russia did pull out of that grain deal on Monday. Now, it's not just on land that we are seeing this tension and seeing these strikes, but also in the Black Sea, out at sea. You have both Russia and Ukraine warning each other that they could go after each other's ships. And now this ominous warning from the CIA director, from the White House, saying that Russia could carry out an attack on civilian ships using this pretext, using this excuse that they believe that any ship going towards Ukraine could be carrying military cargo. That is the excuse that Bill Burns and the White House are now saying Russia could use. At the same time, Ukraine is also saying that they will assume that Russian ships heading to Russian ports in the Black Sea could also be carrying military cargo and therefore could also be targets. They said that those Russian ships could be treated like the Moskva. That is, of course, the Black Sea flagship that was sunk by Ukraine very famously last April. Phil, Abby?
Alex, and we actually have that sound from Bill Burns that you were just talking about.
My question is, I've been hearing them say the CIA has been trying to recruit Russian spies. I'm wondering if that's where they're getting this intel as far as what could be about to take place and Russia's potential next move?
I'm going to play it, but Colonel Anderson, I want you to respond to it on the other side.
What it resurrected was some deeper questions, which again, you've seen circulate within the Russian elite since the war in Ukraine began, since Putin's war in Ukraine began, asking questions about Putin's judgment, about his relative detachment from events, and about his indecisiveness.
So, Colonel Anderson, look, Putin is in a weakened position, obviously, and is feeling incredibly threatened by what Ukraine has done when it comes to the Kerch Bridge. How do you see this playing out?
Well, thank you, Abby. Clearly, he's desperate. I think the walls are closing in. He's greatly embarrassed by the Prigozhin mutiny 3 weeks ago. He was, again, had his nose bloodied by this Kerch Bridge attack, and so he's trying to distract the Russian people and let them focus on attacking Ukraine and specifically their infrastructure that supports movement and shipment of grain. And so he's trying to do that, trying to distract world attention. If you think about it, he really only has a couple of levers in which he can pull to motivate the international community. He's got his nuclear weapons arsenal, he's got oil, and now he's attacking food. He's trying to make it painful for the Ukrainians, just another page out of his playbook. We've seen this before. What we need to do is get more air defense artillery assets down there in Odessa and Mykolaiv. Right now, the only Patriots are in the Kyiv area. Rightfully, they prioritize their capital. But we've got, the United States has a lot of Patriots that are available. And I'd also recommend that we send CRAM, the counter-rocket artillery and mortar systems that were used with great effect in Iraq and Afghanistan, because they not only can attack incoming missiles, but they can also attack the low-flying drones that are such a problem, and the Ukrainians have been struggling to try to defend.
General Anderson, I apologize for mistitling you there, but my apologies.
I do want to ask General Anderson, Alex and the team have done a great job, not just reporting on the ground, but also reporting on the cluster munitions, the decision to send them, that they had arrived. Alex has been talking to commanders that confirmed that first. Your sense from your experience on what effect these will have now that they're being utilized?
Well, I will tell you that they're very effective, and I think that what we're trying to do is trying to use them as a bridging strategy until they can get more ammunition over there, quite frankly, because they know that using cluster munitions has a lot of attendant problems. The dud rate is about 2.3%. Now, Russians are using cluster munitions. Their dud rate is 40%, but that speaks to the manufacturing capability of the United States and NATO. But nevertheless, they're going to have a residual problem, an enduring problem of cleaning up a battlefield, because they know that there's going to be cluster munitions out there that could potentially harm the civilian population. Now, my understanding is the Ukrainians are targeting unpopulated areas and using them, but I think that this is a bridging strategy just to get them until they can get more ammunition. I would also commend the Biden administration for living up to the deal. They said that they'd get cluster munitions within a week to the Ukrainians, and they did that.
Alex, you were saying?
Yeah, I think there really is a debate, Phil, over how effective these munitions can be, and the U.S. is certainly waiting to see. I did speak with a general last week who was in charge of much of the Southern Front, who says that they will have a radical impact. And you'll also speak to some analysts who say you really have to find the right target for cluster munitions to be effective. You know, larger groupings of soldiers, of weaponry and machinery and that kind of thing. But I think the general is absolutely right. This is, for the U.S., certainly a bridging strategy. It's filling a gap where there is a real shortage of the more standard artillery rounds. And Phil and Abby, right now, this is very much an artillery fight.
No question. Alex Marquardt, retired Army Brigadier General Steve Anderson. Thanks, guys.